Okay, so now we're gonna start putting the hinges on. I already skimmed all the gusset areas on the elevator. I didn't sand them yet, so they still look pretty rough, but it's so cold outside, and that's where I do all my sanding and cutting. But I'll show you how I do the hinges, because if you cut the hinges and then just do this one, the center one, and then that far one, if you get one of them just slightly cocked a little bit, it makes it cocks the, it bows the elevator whenever you actuate the elevator up and down. So what I do is, since the elevator, the hinge, the piano hinge stays relatively straight, almost perfectly straight when it's opened up like this and laid flat. So I leave it in one long piece and run it right down the length. Now here's the first thing. The first thing I do is I put spacers in between at the ends here, like this. And this here is to hold it down, because remember, these are angled right there. So this here space of wood, yeah, can you see? Nope, can't even see what I'm pointing at. Okay, so this spacer of wood right here that I'm putting between them, if you don't put some weight on this, one will ride up over the other one. So put some weight on it. Then I take the oscillating saw, and I just trim these a little bit, because if you cut them off and they're coming up at an angle, they're going to be closer together because they're up higher here. So I just trim them off straight down like this to get a little bit more width. And then this here line is about the middle of that rib, and that's good enough for these hinges. And right there's the middle of these two holes right here. So I'll take and I'll do two things. I'll mark this line right here. Make sure all the way across your piano hinge is good and straight. And then mark both sides. And this here whole center section of the aileron and elevator are in a free state, because they're clamped over this block out at the ends and nowhere else. The rest of the way is all in a free state. And this is a fairly narrow area that it's being clamped, so it's not like it's springing it or anything. So at this point, you can go ahead and put straight lines, so that whenever you get this hinge cut, or you can put the holes. And of course, you'll want to do this with a brad bit, which means that's the drill bit that has the little point in the center, and rakers on the outside of the drill that come down, keeps it from chewing up the wood. Now the holes may not line up with where you're going to be at here in the middle. Am I blocking the light? Probably am, yeah. So you just scoot this, and you line up. Well, first of all, you want to get a good marking for the layout of the hinge, and then 3 1/4. The inner hole is 3 1/4, and that from the center line. And I measuring the center line, I measured the overall distance divided in half, made 2 lines, and they didn't come out perfect, so I split them right there. This here middle line is the actual center. So 3 1/4 inches out from that is going to be the inside inner holes. Now I'm using I'm not going to drill new holes in this. These are 2 inches apart, and on the print it says 2 and I believe it's 2 3/8 inch on the print, but I'm not going to go 2 3/8. I'm just going to use the 2 inches that's already on here. Okay, now we'll just slide it down and get the end one. And line up the center here. And then first things first, I already did this, I guess. Send. So now they're all marked very clearly, and I'll show you how I like to drill them. And first of all, these aren't so critical that you couldn't just eyeball it, and if you're pretty good. And what you definitely don't want to do is have it even tilted back slightly, because remember, this here edge down here is angled back on both sides. So whatever you do, don't accidentally have it angled this way, but get it as straight as you can. If it's angled backwards slightly, that probably wouldn't hurt much, because you're going to sink the washers into the wood a little bit anyways. The next way would be to make yourself a drill jig. That's not real thick, but that's not too bad. You don't want a real thick one, maybe that much thicker than this one, 1 inch and not 1.5 inches, because then you don't have enough length for the drill to drill. You know, this will take up the whole length of the drill to get through, so you can't get through everything. So, but anyways, you want it semi-wide, a little bit longer, and then make sure this is sanded perfectly flat. And the rest of it can be rough cut. In fact, that's better, because then you don't get confused which is the perpendicular, or the perpendicular side. And of course your drill has to be square to its table in that too. So you just now you take that drill, put it in your drill chuck, your hand drill, and you just hold this tight over top of one of those holes. You actually push it through the drill jig like this, so that you can align, and you'd want this dimpled already in the center. And then you tip this up in the center, push this down, this block down, and then get your drill kind of in a free state, and then go ahead and start drilling from there. Oh, that's not too bad right there. And of course you want a block of wood underneath this. You're not going to do it on a cement floor. You know, everybody knows that, I hope. And the piece of wood on the back keeps it from splintering on the way out, even if you're using a brad bit. Now, if you're real anal, which I definitely am not, and yet sometimes I just want some things closer to perfect, well, you can get a bench top, or your if it's a pedestal drill, you can, I guess you could use bring it over next to your table, but you measure the distance off the floor or your table, and get a bunch of geodetic and clamp it to your elevator or your stabilizer. Clamp it around it to raise it up even with your table, and then you've got perfectly straight holes you're going to be drilling through. Of course, a faster and easier way than measuring and then measuring the sticks is just set the stick right there and make a mark. It is 6 1/4 inches, and now they're all marked 6 1/4 inches. So we'll just set that up on the drill press, and yeah, let's go ahead and put the middle on it. Might not balance, but set it. Just